Hello, and welcome to our first episode of Insights from the Couch with Lily Smith, licensed clinical social worker and owner of the Traveling Therapist, and Stephanie Stump. She is not only a clinical manager, she is not only a licensed mental health clinician, but she's also a Reiki certified master, and she also does certified yoga instructor. She does tarot reading. So she's across the board just amazing. Welcome
Yeah.
to our first episode. Today we're actually going to start with a bang. So we're going to be talking about how spirituality and faith work in tandem with our mental health, and what are some of the things that we have observed over the years working with patients who use faith or spirituality for coping and the ones that don't, and also kind of discuss what are some of the healthier coping tools that we have found that we can take advantage of through our spirituality and faith as well. Um, okay, so Stephanie, you and I are two peas in a pod, but like we're in two very different spectrums because obviously you lean more towards the spiritual side. So you are very passionate about things like Reiki and mindfulness from more of the esoteric, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And I am more of Christian. So for example, when I love to go into the sauna at the gym. And when I go into the sauna, I meditate there. And when I meditate, my meditations are like on Psalms, like Psalm 91, Psalm 23. So I meditate, but I meditate on something related to like the Bible. So it's um my I'm more like faith-based spirituality.
Okay.
And I've noticed over the years that it seems like it's become kind of polarizing where you're either spiritual or you have faith. Like you're either spiritual or religious, one or the other. You can't be
Uh-huh.
both. Is that the experience that I'm curious actually, what is the experience that you have noticed over like the last 2, 3 years in the world of spiritual mindfulness and mental health?
I have a couple different experiences because I have personal and then I have just, what I see, I guess what you would call collectively. Personally, growing up was raised in religion. And so I saw very anti all the spiritual stuff, whether you want to call it new age or esoteric or energy or anything,
Hmm.
to the point of even questioning yoga practices and stuff, right?
Hmm.
That can be a sin or you know something along those lines.
Demonic or hmm.
Yeah. hmm
Right.
Um, Now, since I've been in the spiritual world more so, at first it was just a lot of spiritual type stuff. But then I started noticing a lot of people using what I consider very overt Christian terms like God and things like that. And sometimes you can tell through seeing like their stuff they post online or through the way they talk that these are words that they use interchangeably. So they don't necessarily mean literal like the Christian God, right? It's just
Hmm.
a higher power, but that's the term that everyone's familiar with. But I have known more recently, I would say probably over the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen more and more actual tarot readers that do talk about a belief system that's rooted more in the Bible. And they do go to church on Sundays and things like that, but they see the other side of it as well. And so they are tarot readers that also believe that kind of thing.
It's actually really interesting because on my side, globally, I've observed more of the use of words like universe, for example,
Hmm.
interchangeably with the idea of a higher power.
Right.
And while before people would usually say God or a some sort of a God, whether it's a prophet or whether it's Buddha or whether it's
Hmm.
God, the Christian God, people would say that. now it's more like the universe or karma
Mhm.
or the dharma, or like, they seem to be using that more interchangeably with the word God.
I do see quite a bit of that too. Yeah, like source or the universe or even guides, ancestors. Sometimes people use that as their term for their,
Yes, yes,
that's
my
something that's
angels.
beyond this world that can see what we can't, kind of thing. But I'm thinking to me, it's almost like I don't know if you remember this. This was a few years ago. Like, I mean, I don't even think I was in grad school yet when this was going around, the argument of whether you should say Christmas, Merry Christmas, or Happy Holidays.
Yeah,
Everybody was in an
yes,
uproar about this, right? To me, I feel like it's thing source or the universe is more of an inclusive term. And I understand that some people and their beliefs, they don't want to do that, right? That
right.
can be considered sacrilegious to refer to it as
Mhm.
anything other than God. But I think from a counseling perspective, I like to use that kind of terminology because one of the questions, as you know, that we ask in biopsychosocials is about people's spiritual or religious beliefs. And I've
Right.
noticed that for me personally, just using the term spiritual and using the term religious, people still don't understand what I mean. And I will frequently get, no, I'm not religious at all. I don't go to church. And I'm like, whoa,
True.
wait a minute. No, we got to really talk about this. So I've learned that I can't just say that. I have to actually have more of an in depth discussion and use some more all inclusive terms to kind of get them to understand like what I mean by that.
Yeah, and I think that with the whole movement of inclusivity, you
Hmm.
know, and especially in the therapy world, we we work with a lot of very uh people who are very in tune with
Hmm.
their emotions and just their psychological needs to be almost like valued, and
Hmm.
their identity be valued as what they see themselves being. When you talk about, let's use universe instead of like God, because God is very specific.
Hmm.
Universe is just all encompassing. When you use universe, it's like, okay, well, you could be so many different things and still obviously you're a part of the universe, and you may believe that like God created the universe. Like, okay, yeah. Or you can believe that like no, it was actually a Hindu god that did it, or it can be, or you can believe in something more of this, the universe was the Big Bang theory, for example.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
um, so these things, when you talk about universe in an inclusive way, is like, okay, we're pretty much just covering everyone, unless the person specifically says, I am this particular religion, and this is specifically how I would like for you to refer when we're talking about, my religious affiliations.
That's why I think that conversation's important in the very first session and the intake session because, I mean, as counselors, our beliefs aren't meant to be in the room. If it's not, scientifically based type beliefs, it's not
Hmm.
meant to be in the room. And I have a lot of clients that are Christian. I have over the years, and they very much go by the Bible and they go to church. So that's the language I use. And,
Hmm.
thankfully for my background in that, that allows me to work with them because I do know the ins and outs of all of that. And so, again, just talking about the inclusion, it's important that it goes both ways.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like to lead with that conversation and let the client tell me where they're at because then I'm able to use the language that works for them to help them understand and help guide them.
Yeah. And now how it plays a role in the mental health aspect of it is, I've actually had experiences over the last couple of years. I've had the experience of seeing complete opposite sides of the spectrum. So I actually, my background being in hospice, so I've worked a lot with loss and death
Mhm.
and dying, etc. And I actually told this to my patient on Friday. I said, there are not a lot of atheists in hospice, I promise you that.
Yeah.
She's like, that makes sense. I'm like, there's something about that.
Yeah.
But I've had both. I've worked with people who are they do not believe or have any understanding of a higher power, period, any higher
Mhm.
power. Or the opposite. I've had people that are very religious, and what I have seen on the aspect of mental health is the people who have some sort, any sort of anchor in a higher power. And it literally is not as relevant what the anchor is, just as long as there's something bigger than yourself
Mhm.
to hold on to, have a much healthier trajectory in the mental wellness process than the ones that don't. Typically, there are moments in people's lives that require you to believe that there's something bigger than yourself, where you
Mhm.
literally question your whole existence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so the people that don't have that, what I noticed is they try to find it in other people.
Mhm.
They try to find that unconditional love that you would get, say, from God
Mhm.
in another person. And so I, the more that happens, the more I notice a lack of boundaries in relationships where the person does not have a belief in a higher power, much higher risk of depression, codependence,
Mhm.
anxious attachment, and insecure attachment, and a much higher incidence of panic attacks and literally going into existential crisis because like whenever you're faced with the reality of the end of your life, there's nothing beyond that. It's like I'm
Mhm.
gonna be gone and that's it. I have nothing to kind of like again anchor me. Have you noticed
Um,
like similar things?
I have. There's so much nuance to this subject that we could honestly do probably like a 6-hour podcast. Uh, I have noticed that one of the big things I've noticed is I tend to find, and it's not, a rule, but I have tend to see that there's much more fear of some certain things when there is like a solid belief. Like almost when there's not that openness for the possibility of something else, if that makes sense. Like I've seen people that are very, very religious, like whether it's the Bible, the Quran, whatever it is, that's the strict belief. There's nothing outside of that. I notice a lot of fear and uncertainty around death, which I have found extremely interesting because I'm like, but you have the book on it, like literally, right? Like you have what that belief is. Then I think we come into where it's the faith base, right? It's like how
True.
much do you have that faith in
Hmm.
what you believe? But that's just what I've noticed is a big thing with that. But I've seen it in people that are more what you would call like esoteric, spiritual, like type
Hmm.
people. I've seen it in that too, where almost like the possibilities are endless because you can believe that anything is possible after this life, and then that instills fear because it's like, well, then what's the right choice kind of thing. So a lot
Um,
of mine, if we're on that subject, a lot of
mhm.
mine tends to be like trying to find that root for them, that anchor for them within a belief system, whatever it is for them.
That's true. So to talk about my experience with the those who are faith-based. So
Hmm.
the patients that I've had that are have like strong religious affiliations, they seem to, not all of them, but those who have healthy relationships with religion, because
Hmm.
religion, there should be fear in your religious relationship with literally you're talking about having a relationship with a omnipresent,
Hmm.
omnipotent being. So like if we're being literal, God is like big G.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like
Uh-huh.
you shouldn't be afraid to piss off God,
Uh-huh.
right? So there should be a healthy amount of reservation, no different than if you piss off your parents.
Hmm.
Um, you know, um, but those who have a healthy relationship with religion, where they have not been indoctrinated to believe that they are broken
Hmm.
somehow and that there's just something innately wrong with you. And so you
Hmm.
should be afraid because no matter what, you're gonna end up in hell and like you breathe and you're gonna end up in hell. You like
Hmm.
smile and you dress a certain way, anything, like you can't even like you're walking on eggshells. So if if your relationship is a positive one and a healthy one, what I have seen is there is a much higher chance that there's almost like a peace and a
Hmm.
comfort. And sometimes they even come to me and they say, I'm just really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to
Yep.
meeting my maker and
Hmm.
being with them. Like I had somebody who was with their spouse for 58 years
Hmm.
and spouse passed away and he had a terrible death. I mean, it was such a sad ending. He was very, very ill. The wife, obviously, someone who was, they were very much the roles. He was the man, she was the woman. She
Okay.
didn't drive. She
Oh wow,
didn't,
yeah.
so like that.
Hmm.
58 years,
Old school traditional.
old school, old school.
Yeah.
So she didn't drive. She didn't go anywhere without him. She
Hmm.
cooked. She didn't manage the finances. She didn't pay the bills. She didn't know anything about that. She didn't even go to the grocery store alone. So, but her faith, like, has allowed me as her therapist, has been my
Hmm.
best tool. My
Yep.
best, absolutely my best tool, because I honestly believe that if she had not had the faith that she has, this
Hmm.
woman who is in her 80s would not have survived through this grief the way that she has. And she not only has survived, she's thrived. She
Hmm.
now has like social friends. She has activities. She goes to a center with a bunch of her friends from church, and like she has thrived in it. Our most consistently positive coping mechanism has been
Hmm.
her very healthy relationship with God. So
Right.
that's that other side.
And I agree, and I think it's like even what you're talking about right there, it's like it's also very normal for everyone to slip out of faith, right? To question their beliefs. I think especially when we see them, right? That's like
Hmm.
they're always
Hmm.
going through something in life that's like the classic time that it's hard sometimes to hold that extreme faith and belief in what you've always believed. And so it's again, it's walking that line of being able to use their faith and help them use their faith to navigate this new place in life. And sometimes that even includes challenging a little bit,
Hmm.
sometimes their beliefs, because some of our beliefs around religion, spirituality, whatever it is affected by the humanness of this world. And so it is can turn into that shame and blame and all
Yes.
of those kinds of things. And it's like you got to get them to guide it back to like their heart space with their faith to help guide them through the new phase that they're in.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, I would say if you're someone who, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or piggyback on this or expand, but I would say if you're someone who's struggling with your mental health,
Hmm.
pretty crucial, pretty important to do some self-reflection. And as you're starting to think about what is my personal image, how do I see myself? How do I interpret the world for myself? What
Hmm.
kind of person do I think I am? As you're like doing that self-reflection, what are some of the things that I would like to change in myself? What are some of the things that I love about myself and that I care for about myself? Exploring what your spirituality is, what your beliefs are, what kind of relationship you have with your spirituality, with your faith, I think
Hmm.
it's really, really crucial as part of being mentally healthy.
Hmm.
Were you just literally pushed into a religion that you don't even understand, that you don't have a relationship with? Or are
Hmm.
you desperately trying to find something and you really don't even believe in what you're doing right now, but it's the first thing that you found that doesn't judge you, or that you
Hmm.
feel like my friend does it, or so and so did it? You know, I think that that's a really good place to start when you're trying to find some self-identity and
Hmm.
find kind of the path to mental wellness, because I honestly believe that we are creatures, we are social creatures. We
Hmm.
are not meant to be alone. We're not meant to be isolated in our beliefs. You know, that idea of I I'm just going to go into nothingness and there's nothing beyond me and there's really no point to me being here on the earth in the first place. Though that belief is depressive,
Hmm.
it's discouraging, it leads to hopelessness. So that's what I would say. Like, I feel it's a good place to start when you're trying to, work on yourself.
Hmm. I agree. I think, every belief system that's out there, whether it's organized, religion or not, has where it tells you who you are, right? Like that you,
Hmm.
but like in the good ways of like, Christianity is like you are forgiven, you are worthy because Jesus died for your sins, and spirituality it's like you are worthy of that. The universe does love you. You do have a reason to be here. You have a purpose or you wouldn't be here. It
Right.
has all of those things, but then again, like I said, it also has those sides of like, in spirituality, it's karma. In religion, it's a sin. It's got the dark and the light. And in our world, and I think as humans and the things that we go through, especially in our darker times of life, we want to lean more towards that dark side where it is like that guilt and that shame, or like, I'm not good enough because I did this one time, or, I'm not a perfect person. So what if I do go to hell? Or what if karma comes back on me because I did this thing that time that I was angry, or, all of those things. It's like, it goes back again to guiding them within themselves, like you said, and like rooting into that belief. And like kind of really there's a lot of religion that is just, or belief systems at all, that is very much just being a counselor, and it's using those positive light aspects to help guide that person back to themselves.
And I love that you touched on that subject actually, because you're absolutely right. There is most definitely a darker side to faith
Mhm.
and spirituality. And if you have a tendency to see yourself in a negative light, you
Yep.
will focus a lot more on those darker sides.
Mhm.
And it can be a tool for good, and it can be a tool for terrible, terrible things,
Yep.
because it's so easy to use our faith and spirituality almost like a whip to
Mhm.
beat ourselves down.
Mhm.
And somehow now I have a reason why I hate myself. Now I have a reason why I'm ashamed of myself and guilty because I'm a sinner, or because I'm not good enough, or, like
Mhm.
I'm being punished, and I think you're right. Like, understanding that part of loving and growing wiser and healthier is understanding that, okay, where does my spirituality, where's my commitment to my faith, where's my relationship with this aspect of my life, where does it come
Mhm.
from?
Mhm.
Is it from a healthy place or an unhealthy place? How can I develop it in a
Mhm.
way that becomes a tool for good rather than the whip, but more
Mhm.
of the hope? Um, and accepting that obviously we're all going to have our mistakes and we're all going to do things that are not, we're not proud of.
Right.
It reminds me actually of Russell Brand. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I follow him, and his mental health journey has been
Hmm.
really, really incredible and really interesting because he went from being this Hollywood troubled individual who was doing everything under the sun to just self-destruct
Hmm.
to then hitting rock bottom and going off on a spiritual journey, finding a guru, following the guru, learning about
Hmm.
meditation, yoga, like all of these different things, to now he just got baptized recently, ironically by Bear Grylls, which
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting. I'm like, of course, Bear Grylls baptized Russell Brand
Uh-huh.
on the internet. But now he's going into kind of like more of his faith-based phase of his life, where he's now
Hmm.
like talking more about the Bible and he's exploring it because for the first time he's like actually reading it and he's curious about it. But it's amazing to me because this person was not in a good place
Hmm.
in his journey to mental wellness, because that's what it started with. It's just, I just got to get away from this life.
Right.
In his journey, like you see this huge, massive positive change that he
Hmm.
has had. And it's like, okay, how has he dealt with all of the sins and all
Right.
of the karma, right?
Hmm. Yep.
To get to the point where he's at now. Like that's the ideal situation. It's like question everything. Question everything. Question
Hmm.
why you feel guilty, why you feel ashamed, where did it
Yep.
come from? Who put that in your head? Question why do you believe in this? Why do you believe in this like creator or this particular universal being or whatever? Question yourself in every possible way
Hmm.
so that you can start to figure out where do the good feelings come from and where do the bad feelings.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, you see that a lot in people that take those journeys. It's like, again, at the end of the day, and we could do a whole podcast on this, all the beliefs are truly the same. If you really look into them, like the core message is always exactly the same. It's just different words are being used. So
Mhm.
it's, the door to how you get there, it doesn't matter which one you open necessarily. It's just about what works for you. I have known people, same story as like him and countless other people that have been through a lot of darkness in their life, particularly like down the road of addiction. That's a big one. And the first door that they open that kind of saves them is the religious door, and it's Christian or it's Catholic or something along those lines of like an organized religion like that, and the structure of it all provides them a lot of security, a lot of safety. They're able to build that faith, they're able to anchor into that belief. And some people, the door that opens for them is the more spiritual one, where it is like the guru meditating, yoga, the energy work, like all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, neither one is right or wrong. It's whatever door you open that's the path to get you there to start healing those things and finding that forgiveness for self and rooting yourself in some kind of faith that brings more light and love into your life rather than the darkness.
Yeah. So to finish up, I think the point that we're trying to make is, at least the point that I wish to make myself is understand that a healthy individual is an individual that has some sort of a relationship with a bigger, greater
Hmm.
something, source.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is because the more we fixate on ourselves, the more we become mentally mm, kind of like distorted.
Hmm.
because our views of ourselves are not honest. They are
Hmm.
often hypercritical, they are
Yep.
often cataclysmic, they
Hmm.
are pessimistic, and they are almost always rooted on messages that we have received through the years from the people around us in our societal environment.
Yep.
So, when all that you can hold on to as what you're supposed to be as a person is yourself, and there's
Hmm.
nothing, no guidance coming from anywhere else, you're only seeing one very, very, very small part of the bigger picture. So the message that I want to send is learn to separate yourself from the person that you can be.
Hmm.
Believe and know that we are meant to have a relationship with something higher than ourselves.
Hmm.
It gives us purpose. We need purpose. We need to feel like we're here for a reason because life is hard.
Hmm.
And no matter what, however you want to go about it, the most important thing is to just trust that if you start the internal work of questioning your beliefs and questioning what is happening, where you're coming from when it comes to your faith or spirituality, or what you see as faith and spirituality, start there. At least start there.
Hmm.
Because you're going to find that it's easier to heal if you have some sort of an anchor, some sort of a spiritual faith-based anchor, than if you're just doing it on your own and you're just
Hmm.
solely relying on yourself or solely relying on other people to tell you how to live your life.
Right.
So that's my thought on that.
I agree because I think from all the perspectives, it's still about the connection to others, and I do think sometimes, and I'm going to say this more so in the spiritual community, the esoteric type spiritual community, it can get a little out of hand with that, like, God is within you and you just need to focus on yourself. And like, I do love that message, but we're missing the overarching picture, and that God isn't all of us then. The universe isn't all of us, and the reason you are here is not only to heal your own stuff and elevate your own soul, but by being connected energetically to the all and the everything, you are therefore healing others too. So
Mm,
even if you are working on yourself, you are still, in an energetic sense, you're working in the whole. And to
mhm,
not lose sight of that working in the whole part, because then you're keeping that rooted in that we're all here connected to that. And going back to even a belief of, like you said, like you believe in the Big Bang, and like let's say you think that nothing else does happen after this, you have no soul, it doesn't go anywhere, it's just once this is done, this is it. Well, then you still can't deny the fact that your body's going into this earth and it's providing something to it. It's providing the nutrients to the soil. It's, you're still a part of a greater whole. You're still a part of the everything that we're all connected to. And so
mhm,
even if that's your belief, that's fine, but you can root in that belief system of that you still have a purpose here. There's still a reason you're here. You're still helping others.
mhm. So I hope that our discussion in it helped clarify some, especially some questions or some ideas of how mental health and faith and spirituality play a role in a person's life. We hope that it encouraged you to do some soul searching and questions some things that maybe lead you down a healthy path of connecting with your spirituality and your faith. Again, lastly, we hope that you can eventually use it as a positive tool for growth and development as part of your toolbox of coping mechanisms. And with that, we say goodbye on our first episode of Insights from the Couch, and we hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.
Bye.